So, welcome the Airborne Toxic event to Bandologie. I'd like to introduce myself very quickly this time and your band also quick. I'm Nils Kolonko. I wrote a book for musicians and it includes hints and tips for the music business, how to establish your band in the music business. So this is Noah, bass player of the Airborne Toxic event, Michael Jolet from the Airborne Toxic event. You founded the band in 2006 and then built up a team of musicians. Your debut album was released in 2008. After touring for about 300 gigs, you played a sold-out show in the Walt Disney Concert Hall. On that way you played Lollapalooza and all kind of other stuff. And there was a documentary done after your debut album, and soon there will be a second album of yours. I've just forgot, you sold about 300,000 copies of your debut album, which is pretty good for a debut. And alright, so let's begin with the first question. As I said, in summer 2006 you founded the Airborne Toxic event. You built up a great musical team as well as partnerships with the management and your label. How do you find and choose the right people to work with? For example, how did you meet Pete Galley, and by what criteria did you choose him as your manager?
He's a hustler. And our manager hustles. He understands his job is to create opportunities for the band. He's a young guy. We were dealing with some folks that were
old school music people,
and they would be with the big cigar, I'm gonna make you a star, kid. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get you on that American Bandstand.
So how did you find him?
Well, we got approached by a lot of managers, and we were actually with Coldplay's manager for about 3 weeks, and it just wasn't right for us. It just big management and all that kind of. They just our manager is a young guy, and he's scrappy, hungry, really, really smart, and we just liked him. He was very ambitious, but he's also extremely detail-oriented on the day-to-day, and we felt that made more sense than trying to go with Mr. Big business guy.
And Pete is the kind of guy who founded his own management company before he was, he works in context with a lot of different things, but he was, so he's kind of a self-made man.
Yeah. I just wanted to say self-made guy.
Yeah, he is. He is.
So you choose him by sympathy and
not sympathy, just he's a hustler. We felt like he was the right fit. We also just liked him too. It didn't hurt that we liked him.
He's a good guy.
Right. And you found that he's a self-made guy and into the details.
Absolutely, yeah.
So soon after the band was founded in December 2006, the Rolling Stone magazine named your band one of the top 25 bands on MySpace. In what way did you present your music on MySpace at that time?
What's funny is I think there only are 25 bands on MySpace now.
Yeah, which is, there used to be a ton, but now it's just
it's like a abandoned civilization.
It's like us and 10 other people. It's really sad.
At the time there were a lot though. I don't know, dude. That was a contest we entered. It was some link. We sent in a link. I think it was a slow news week at Rolling Stone. And so it was
Christmas week. Christmas week.
So it was a contest. It was not chosen by the guys from. It was chosen by the guys, but it was not randomly chosen from all the MySpace bands, but from the ones who sent in a link.
I think about 100,000 bands sent in a link.
Oh,
it was an editorial decision on their part.
Yeah. But in between 100,000 bands. So how did you present the music at that time?
We just recorded it and sent it out. I mean, I think the premise of your question is how did we sort of gain it, and we didn't really. We just kind of there's a lot of rules to be followed, but at the end of the day, you just have to put your heart and soul into a song, and if you put your heart and soul into a song, then none of those rules matter. I think it's a matter of people know the difference by you can hear it, and I can't tell you why that's the case. You know what I mean? They just do. So I don't think it was. I think they heard a song and they liked it. So
you didn't have any special presentations or videos or graphics?
No,
just the music.
No, it was just like a song, and I wrote it, and we
mostly Michael
had
recorded most of. No, all of the songs you'd done 100% of the guitars on your laptop at home at that point.
Right.
It was just like home recordings.
That's quite important to know for newcomer musicians. You recorded all the songs on your laptop in quite final versions with a guitar, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, we used studio as a track of drum, but This was just the demo, which became our EP, which was basically our demo. I don't know why anybody would need to pay big money for a studio in 2011. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, maybe you'll get like an extra 10% better sound out of your drums. That's about it.
Yeah.
And if you have access to good guitars and good synthesizers, that's good too.
That's
otherwise
thing,
it isn't that important.
I think a lot of the time people forget that having a really nice studio isn't actually going to make you play any better or your songs be any better.
Yeah,
which is really the most important thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you kind of, in my opinion, you made it kind of trick with your first album. It wasn't really a trick, but you recorded all the stuff live, so that put you under the pressure. Maybe.
Yeah, so we did live recordings for our first record. Some of that was just by necessity. People had, we only had an hour to record in the studio that we were recording in, that we were borrowing from or whatever, and that was the hour, and we did a take, and that was the take, and that was what was on the record.
But obviously it was good.
Yeah, we've been playing live for a while, and we're mostly a live band, and so, we wanted to capture what we were doing live in the studio, so, plug them in. Are the mics on? Great, start. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, if you got a good song, or if you've composed a good arrangement that brings it to life for people, you don't need that many bells and whistles. Just play your song.
Yeah. In my opinion, it was quite clever of you, because that separated you from thousands of other bands who cut in Pro Tools for hours and so on. So your sound probably it differs,
sloppy,
and it sounds kind of 70s because you recorded it live.
I think it's just sloppy.
Yeah, and we probably would have used a lot of Pro Tools if we could have, if we had the opportunity, but it wasn't like it was. That's what sounded good, and so when we really come from a place where if it sounds good, then you don't need to redo it with a vintage guitar or whatever out of a specific amplifier or anything. If it happens to be a broken guitar with a missing string and you record it and it sounds good, there's no rule book that says, well, you have to redo it once you get to the studio. If that sounds awesome, then it sounds awesome.
There's like really smart people that don't understand that. It's really weird.
It is very weird.
They're like, if you want to get a big sound, you need a 1976 Fender Strat. You got to run it through an 8x10 patched to an AC30 head that's been cranked past the... And you're like, bro, just play a fucking chord.
This is some guitar out of an amp, and it sounds really good. Can we make it sound like... Okay, so all that fancy stuff, can we make it sound like that?
Did your classical background or your jazz background on the bass, did that influence this decision?
I mean, probably subconsciously for me personally.
Yeah.
I mean, Mikkel likes to put me on the spot for anything, but it's not like he would do that with, he does it with everybody. It's always like, what's the limit we can push, whether it's, arrangement wise from like a whole band standpoint, or like how you're going to play a part or what kind of part you can play. And I think that's really important to have somebody who's like, okay, so this is hard. Okay, well, let's make it even harder, and then let's do that. And
well, what's awesome is Noah can do it. Like, you can tell him, he'll be like middle of the song, and I'll be like, okay, double time it. Okay, make it sort of Indian. Okay, now add some more hammering. Okay, now take everything you're doing and do it 3 times as fast. And he'll be like,
and backwards. And the change.
And I'll be like, and he'll just do it.
But it's an important thing to like, not just push yourself, but your bandmates as well. And I think that it really works out for us well.
Yeah, I'd like to put one question. First, you spoke about pushing the boundaries, and you said in another interview that you can reach certain abilities that you thought you never had. Is that by pushing, or is it by outside pushing, or how do you do that?
I mean, you can become the best apple pie baker in the world if you bake an apple pie every day. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to make a decision to do it by whatever means you have. For some people, that's rehearsing 10 hours a day. For some people, that's recording 10 hours a day. What I will tell you is it takes a long time to get good at something. And, people who think you're born with talent are just wrong. You develop talent. Wasted talent's the most abundant resource in the world. You gotta hey, like people think, when I was 15 I did this thing and people thought it was sort of charming, and they're like 25 still doing the same damn thing.
Yeah.
You have to get better. And the only way you get better is by practicing.
And doing it over and over
again and again and again. 10,000 hours. Spend 10,000 hours baking apple pies, and you can make a really good apple pie.
Spend 10,000 hours playing a rock and roll show. I mean, the fucking Beatles were playing for 3 or 4 sets a day in Hamburg before they recorded.
I was born in Hamburg.
Oh yeah, so, I mean, they recorded. They played for hours and hours a day.
7 hours every day.
I think they played 2 sets of 8 hours a night or something.
They played 7 hours every day.
A day and night.
And did that for years before they recorded a single note.
And then people said, "Oh, you guys are really talented." And they're
By
like,
the way,
"Well, we've been playing 7 hours a day."
I mean, we know every pop song. We know every song.
Yeah. There's a nice little anecdote about the Beatles. They were introduced to Decca Records and they were declined because in 1962 Decca Records told them guitar bands are on their way out. 1962.
That's funny. NME told us that last year.
Yeah, we got that before.
And it repeats after that. But your lyrics and your music obviously enthuse people. You said about songs that, I quote, what's on the core of it isn't all this bullshit about internet, MP3, whatever. It's people connecting with another person. Sorry. So what's your advice for songwriters and producers to write a great song and make a great recording?
Spend 10,000 hours doing it.
All right. So
I'm serious. Like, sit down tomorrow, decide you want to be a songwriter, and go about acting like your life depended on it. And it's really hard. It's actually like really hard, and I think people want to, but people are always testing to see if they have the talent for something, and then they're like, oh, and they do something, and they're trying to ask themselves, do I have the talent for this? And they're hoping that like through minimal effort they have some innate talent. And like, it's true that 1 in every 100 million people have that. You have a Mozart every now and then, but most of us aren't Mozart. The other 999 million, you have some talent and you have to develop it. So, I mean, what can I say? Spend a lot of time, make it your business. Listen to a lot of songs and then forget a lot of great songwriters. Listen to Bruce Springsteen, Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan, and then forget about them. Go to a lot of shows, write 1,000 songs.
And then forget about them?
Yeah, because you don't want to be copying what they did. Just listen to it, forget about it, move on, and then write 1,000 songs. And I promise you, if you write 1,000 songs, one of them is going to be good.
I learned to play the drums over years, and I know what you're talking about. But I wasn't talented, but years later, people told me, you're a very talented drummer, you're a great professional drummer. I had to spend hours.
Thanks.
You spent 1 year in your apartment playing the guitar?
But I've been writing since I was 15. And I've been writing songs my whole life, and and a lot of time spent writing, stories, and just like engaging with what I mean to say is that, it's not something that came easily. It was definitely a lot of time was spent. And when I first started out, I think I got a lot of way to go, buddy. Hey, all right, and then after a while, I was in my own mind going, you know what, I'm just gonna keep doing this. I think I'm onto something here.
One question, I crossed it out, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. You talked about the world forming around the decisions you set or something?
Yeah, Emersonian idea, like the universe. It's a transcendentalist idea. The universe conspires. Once you make a decision to do something, the universe kind of gets on your side about it, but only if you're serious. It also tests you and asks you if you're serious. I was flat broke and ruined my credit and living in a tiny little squalor of an apartment and defaulted on every one of my credit cards and was halfway to homeless. And each one of those things, life is do you mean it? Do you mean it? Do you really want to do this? And if your answer is not anything other than 100% yes, you don't have the stomach for it. So you go to fucking law school or something. Go.
You made it?
Yeah, law school is the comment.
Did you go to law school?
No, I'm saying if you want a path that's laid out for you, because you can't you can't stomach the shame of being broke or having to borrow money from friends or whatever you gotta do to get by. Don't be a musician.
You changed your career slightly. You were a writer for magazines. How did you find out that your stomach was more for music?
I don't know what happened, to be honest. I don't know. I just did. I'm not sure.
So it happened subconsciously?
Yeah, just kind of one day I started doing it, and then I just kept doing it. And then I didn't want to do anything else, and I didn't care. I helped that I met these guys. You know,
Yeah, sure. You've got 2 or 3 studied musicians in your band?
very
3 or 2?
well, actually, all 4 of them.
All 4?
If you want to get into
alright,
the
so
details.
2.
Yeah, and like, you know, when you're working with people that are that talented, it does push you a lot.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
really, I mean, they're literally like the most talented people I could find. You're not gonna find a better musician than this guy right here. You're just not.
Thank you.
It's true. And like we co-write songs together, and I don't co-write with anyone because I think most people aren't very good at it, and I co-write with him because he's good at it. And you know, when you got people that are that talented, that like I see stuff where I'm like, how the hell did they? I don't even know how he does it sometimes. Stuff like that, I'm like, shit, man. And it gives me faith to like spend an extra week working on the song and getting it right, and working on whatever my contribution is, and trying
of your team?
or just whatever it is. Yeah,
Well,
trying
also,
to push my own level.
He probably wouldn't admit it to anyone, but like, you know, with how many songs we've played together as a band, it's an unknown number of songs that he will do by himself before he even considers like, taking it to the band. Before we even get to that step.
So
it's not
choosing the songs you bring to the band,
for sure.
and most of it you cut out and leave it.
80%.
Yeah, kind of like my question. I had 100 questions
Just like
for
the
you,
questions.
and well, I studied your band in the last
I'm very sorry.
3 days. No, it was a great example actually. It was kind of, to me, it's kind of classic. But anyway, because let's not get into my details. Let's get into yours. Many musicians still believe managers and labels could hit a magic switch to turn your band to the next U2 overnight. I'd like to know more about your meeting with Phil Costello of TBD Records. Could you tell us?
I mean, Phil was a great guy. We met him very, very early on once we got on the radio.
Yeah.
So
on K-Rock.
TBD is Radiohead's label. He runs Radiohead's label.
And he met us. He met us because we were like, once we got on the radio, it was such an anomaly that we ended up meeting a ton of people. And Phil functioned for us like this sort of. We started to call him the Oracle because he was this one person who, instead of being like, you have to do this or you have to do this, or it's my way or the highway, kid, you'll never make it in this business unless you do what I say. He was one of the first people that sort of helped us to even try to make sense of the big music business world, whatever that is. Because, you know, we would play shows and record songs when we could. It wasn't like we were each had like a guidebook on, like, you know, the idiot's guide to, you know, making a record.
Phil had some real straightforward rules for us. He was like, look, you're just gonna have to go earn your fans. You know, every single one of them, you gotta go earn them. And we're like, what do you mean? He's like, you gotta look them in the eye and sing a song. You gotta look them in the eye and play a show. You gotta pour your heart out to them. And you can't take them for granted. You're gonna have to go back 6-7 times to each one of these cities you want to have a touring base before you even think about considering yourself established in that city, and that's for every city in the world you want to play. And so it was very sobering.
He's one of the first people who will be like, there is no switch. You don't flip a switch and then there's like
it's impossible.
I mean,
and you control your own destiny, and you gotta stick by your own. You gotta rely on your own work.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, whether it's augmented by a label or just as your own person, at the end of the day, you rely on your own work. And if you're doing something where you're relying on the work of others, you're fucked. You gotta rely. It's not gonna happen. You gotta rely on your own work.
Many musicians.
They're waiting to be discovered.
You're fucked when you rely on others.
Because people are sitting around. It's that same idea of talent. They're sitting around waiting for someone to come in and go, "You're talented, kid. Let me take you somewhere." And it's horseshit. Like, every band that you've ever seen that's successful, that even as cool as they were once they got big, at some point they were hustling.
Yeah, sell your computer, sell your cat, buy a van, get in that van, take it on the road. Like there's no
stay up all night writing songs and write 100, write 1,000. You know, write them in 10 different ways. Listen to new music, listen to old music, and like really dig deep. What are you about?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about? What are you feeling? How are you going to bring that to life in the mind of a listener? Like, really get into that, and don't just do it once. One time's not even a toe in the water. Do it like endlessly, and then at some point you're going to do something good. Even if just by accident you'll stumble on something good.
You have no choice once you do. I mean, you will figure it out, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a moment in time when All at Once changed in your life, like the new album is called?
When no, it was very incremental. I mean, we're probably described as one of the most meteoric bands. We've read that about ourselves, you know, but it didn't feel meteoric to us. It felt like we played for 100 people, then 200, then 300, then 500, then 1,000, then 2,000.
Then went to a new country and then just in front of 20 people.
How did you do that? How do you promote gigs in cities where you never played?
You know, you just you look around at that city and see like who's going to shows and who's writing about them, and you know what other bands are playing. Go meet those people. Go meet those bands. Hey, we're playing a show. Come check it out. Or like,
I mean,
you know, here's a song we recorded. Hope you like it.
Yeah, and it's hard to say like,
it's not rocket science.
Yeah, it's hard to say like, oh, pick the rock club and go play that, because maybe the best idea is you should go play at the hip hop club.
Yeah,
like, maybe
if your song sucks, it's not going to matter what you do. And if your song's good, eventually it's not going to matter what you do either.
True that.
Right?
What's your opinion on connecting via the internet and making promotions, selling music via the internet? Or in reality in life?
I don't know. You know, I'm not. You know, if you're a musician, you don't have to be like some weird technical sales guy.
Yeah, and it's not like the internet.
Make a rock song.
Yeah, and it's not like the internet is going to make music better or kill music. It's just like music has been music. It's a.
What did jazz do for the telephone?
Yeah, what did jazz do for? Yeah, what did the telephone do for jazz?
Yeah.
The invention of the telephone. What did that do for jazz?
I mean, it's just like a fucking medium.
What did the phonograph do for?
At the end of the day, you gotta connect something in here to something in there and someone else, and that's it.
Yeah, it's almost like worrying about what's going to happen in 2035, like post-internet. Like, holy shit, we got to be ready for...
What are we going to do with that?
Like, we got to be ready
for the post-internet
or whatever. There's all these weird, like...
What about the financial aspect?
Platforms and shit?
Do you think one can make money on the internet with music?
No.
Well, I mean, you shouldn't be a musician just to make money. You should be a musician because you can't do anything
If you want to make money, you should go be an investment banker. They make a lot of money, and they do it very efficiently, you know, or... Go be like I said, go to law school.
Yeah, go do anything, but you do music because you have to.
And
if the band does whatever it's going to do, Mikkel's going to write 10,000 more songs between now and until he dies. Like, that's going to happen regardless of what else happens.
It's really true. That's kind of shocking to think about.
But the fact that we're like lucky enough to get to play it around, the fact that we're, the five of us are lucky enough to know each other, be able to play it, in front of anybody, even if it's at like 100 people, is awesome. But if you're doing it for the money and the fame and the fortune, then you're out of your fucking mind and you've been lied to your whole life.
That's what most real big rock stars tell you when you ask them seriously. Even
I'm sure like big rock stars are the first people to say
that.
Well,
if you meet people, like I've spent some time with Robert Smith, Lou Reed, David Bowie, and they're like way more humble than like whatever the Flavor of the Month band is. Yeah. People who are like the Flavor of the Month band that are one record in and on the cover of Enemy, and everyone's like, woo! Like they have the biggest egos because they don't know like arrogance is just insecurity, and like because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just like, I don't know how I got here, so I guess I should act like this. Guys that have been around and made a lot of records and played music a long time, they know it's a lot of work, and they know they control their own destiny because they did it. Because they know, hey, I really hit it on this, and because I did, I started to have a career, and then I really hit this other thing, and then I kept having a career, and I just kept touring, and I kept going about it,
In Keith Richards' book, he talks about one of the big moments for the Rolling Stones as a band was when they had an amp. One amp. It was a huge, with everything that they've done in the whole history, still in his mind, because they started from the bottom.
50s, 60s, whenever they started.
Yeah, and they had an amp that they would plug all the guitars and stuff.
I've got two more questions. What do you think about that, and how exactly did it happen that you hit sometime around midnight, got played on several stations, for example on K-Rock, before the band had a manager or a record deal?
That was a double-edged sword, like if you, when we knew it at the time, because people, it's like not that much cool music gets played on the radio. Most good music you find on a blog, or you find through some friends, or you find by chasing other bands that you like. And so the fact that we got put on the radio, before that happened, we were what was called a blog band, or like whatever. And then same people, same song, same whatever, it just started getting played on the radio, and I think people like there's a certain stink to the radio where you're like, oh God, I hate the fucking radio. Who likes the fucking radio? You know what I mean? And so then you know, we've had to work really hard to differentiate ourselves from those bands, and a lot of it's been touring a ton, and some of it's playing your song. We'll do these things where we use videos where you just play the song with no cuts, no edits, no auto-tune, no shit. Just stand there and play your song. I think doing things like that is a way to sort of keep that fresh. I mean, bands that are just on the radio are like the lamest bands we could think of.
Most of them are, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, dude. It was a double-edged sword. I mean, it was cool, but you know, I think we would have been fine without it.
Yeah. I see, but by the radio you got a lot of contacts and stuff, and so
yeah, but we also lost a lot.
You would have got them anyway.
Well, we also lost a lot of context. I mean, I think like
the whole blogger scene.
Week to week, you could like see a difference in the audience, and you could see a difference in perception. And we've had to fight really hard to be like, dude, we're not fucking making.
Yeah,
because
we're
not some
of the month
stupid fucking like manufactured like rock and roll band that you know, everything's just like hire this producer, do this pop mix on the vocal, compress the guitar, make the drums sound like the, you know, it's like all that crap where you're like, no, dude, we literally just wrote songs and then we went to a studio and recorded them, and then we go on the road and we play them, and it's just the five of us doing all that stuff. You know?
I think what happens to people a lot is they look at like a guy who wrote a song who used to be a writer, and it's an amazing song, and people get frustrated that like, how can this song be on the radio? It's just some dude who wrote a song and he's got these guys and they recorded it in a house. And I think people are. I think it honestly frustrates people because it's a great song. And I think
it's simpler than that. I think, you know, we've I think that the people, you don't listen to cool music on the radio. You just don't. You know, like very, very rarely does anything. You know, I think it's just literally that simple. And so, you know, we got very heavily embraced by critics on this record, and then it's sort of like people, and we got like a lot of, and that helped us a lot, because otherwise I think we kind of got lost in the shuffle. You know, music has a lot of projection in it, and if you don't know one from another, and you just see like a list of bands, if you see some of the terrible bands our name is listed next to, it's like, oh, who are these people? Yeah. You know, so like I said, we've worked really hard to distinguish ourselves from that and to stay true to like our roots songwriting wise, and also, you know, by sort of the way we approach things, which is like, dude, if your career is based on radio in 2011, you're like on a sinking fucking ship.
It's not gonna happen. Yeah. And it's all thanks to the internet.
Yeah. My last question. What are your experiences with the music industry? Let's say in 3 phases. Phase 1, you worked on your own and you got on the radio without a label, without a manager. Phase 2, you worked with Major Domo.
We were on a lot of blogs before we were ever on the radio. We were embraced by, I mean, literally like hundreds of blogs. I mean, before we sent some MP3s out, and we had a couple hundred people at our first show, and we were playing for like 500 people now, like 2 or 3 months in. And so it was like the radio thing happened, like we were already touring, we were already playing really big shows in LA. We weren't just like a band playing for 20 people. You know, we had like there was a lot of stuff going on. All our fans already knew every word to every song. It was like already a thing before. It was just like a thing to go to an Airborne show. I mean, we felt lucky at the time too. Like, and this was all before the. It's not like we were put on a radio and then suddenly everything changed for us. I mean, everything changed for us on our first show.
Great, you pointed out how it really went.
Well, that is how it went. You know?
Yeah. But all right, that's some kind of picture that bands rarely get, because they always hope for the radio, for managers, for labels, for the one shot, the one magic thing that happens, and
that never happens.
It never happens.
Never ever.
The one person you will meet.
It's still not happening. I mean, we're on the largest label in the world, and we're still on a daily basis. Like, I'm calling up product managers and calling up our manager, and we're talking through the plan and making sure it's happening and making sure that they're focused on the things we're focused on.
You do, so you call the guys and you will make sure it's all.
And you know who else did that? Mick Jagger, Prince, Bruce Springsteen, David Bowie. You know, these are, you know, they. At the end of the day, it's your career, it's your business,
and you're the only person who's going to make it happen.
Yeah, because like
you can't expect anybody else to do that.
And also, they don't know what's in your mind, and you're the one who's got the relationship with the listener. Noah's got the relationship with the listener, not the product manager at Island F Jam. I mean, he's a good guy. I don't mind our product manager. I'm just saying, I know he is. I don't want him to feel called out if he hears this because he's a big believer. But
I've actually been to 100% of Airborne Toxic event shows.
Yeah,
I've been to every single one of them.
So he has the relationship. They're watching his body language, the way that he plays, the way that he commits to the song, and they're listening to a lot of music that he wrote. You're watching me sing a song. There's a contract that goes on between a singer or a musician and a listener that has nothing to do with any of this other horse shit. And that contract is the important thing. And so, of course, you can't just put that contract in the hands of people who don't know it. They weren't there. They weren't there. They don't know that exchange. They weren't there.
And the kids who we meet, they show up and they're like, your lyrics are exactly what, that's what was happening to me. They'll come up to McKellen, those lyrics, I've had that exact same night. They don't come up to you and they're like, your viral marketing campaign really spoke to me in this amazing, deep way. But no, I don't think, have you heard that? I mean,
I've never heard that.
There might be one kid out there who's like, what was clever? But time after time, hundreds of people. Oh, that speaks to me. That speaks to me. What you were saying speaks to me. That's the name of the game.
What's your experience with a major company? It's always, it's sometimes concerned majors are bad. Last question.
No, our label believes in us. They've shown that, and there probably are evils in the music industry that other people have had experiences with that I would look at and say, yeah, that's pretty evil too. But our label, we've been blessed, I guess. People really are believers, and almost everyone's a believer. And I think things can go wrong. But most people are in it because at some point they worked at a record store, or they were at their college radio station, or they were in a band.
They were in a band. I work for a major company here in Germany.
Yeah, so and that's generally why people are in it, and they're believers. And so for us, we want to tap into that same belief. I mean, our band is sort of founded on some pretty idealistic things, and I think they really respond to that, and they like it. They want. There's like a long list of bands, and we're the one that they want, and we know it. And they tell us this all the time. They're like, "We believe in you, and you're the one we want to break. We want the world to be a place that embraces you." And so, we made a record. They said, cool. Their input was, nice record. Or actually, it was great record. We love it. We can't wait to share it with the world. I mean, again, maybe it would be different if we were a different band or something, but our experience thus far has not been terrible. And I wish I had a horror story to tell. I just don't. And we had some bad experiences being self-released, and we had some bad experiences on indies. So, no matter what you do, there's going to be challenges, and you just have to address them.
Noah, Mikkel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great with you. Got some German chocolate.
Oh wow!
And a flag from Bandologie.
Did you just give us chocolate? That's the least rock and roll gift I think.
Yeah. But it has a guitar.
I'm very sorry.
Anna will be really happy.
Anna will be very happy. Nice to meet you, bro. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good show.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So you can stick around for the show?
Yeah, sure. We're gonna see it.